Hey guys, my name is Mitsumiao, and welcome to our episode of Sunday Mailbox. This is a video series where you, the viewer, can submit your gaming-related questions, and then I will give my humble opinion on them. To get the format out of the way real quick, if you would like to submit your own question that can be featured in an upcoming episode, you can do so by leaving a comment down below, or by sending me a Facebook or Twitter message. The first question for today is, what are your thoughts on Thatcher maybe getting a rework in Rainbow Six Siege? Well, really the only thing that we know right now is that Ubisoft isn't that happy with the way that Thatcher currently works, and I can kind of see where they're coming from. Now, I realize that some people are probably thinking, wait a second, Thatcher needs a rework? Isn't he already a super simplistic operator? He does his job well. I think most people would argue that he's not overpowered in the slightest, and he's one of the few operators that can even deal with gadgets right now. And with the wide array of gadgets that are being introduced every single season, we need people that can actually take care of that. Like, why does he need any changes? Well, I think it comes down to two different reasons. The first one is that there are so many new operators that are being introduced that have gadgets that he can counter. You may have already noticed the differences and changes that Ubisoft is making to this operator with this most recent DLC. With the introduction of Alibi and Maestro, if he uses EMP against them, they don't just get destroyed. They're only disabled for a short period of time. This is the same way that it works for Echo's drones as well. I think Ubisoft has come to the realization if they keep adding in more and more defensive operators that have gadgets that are countered by this character, that character is eventually going to become overpowered. This is the same problem that happened with IQ. The other reason why Ubisoft isn't really too happy with this kit right now is that there isn't a whole lot of interaction between offense and defense. As a defender, you can't really do anything to deal with the Thatcher. Now, you could play as a Jaeger and put down an ADS, and sometimes you'll be able to snag one of his nades out of the air, but as long as the Thatcher knows what he's doing, he should have no problem working around that. And so Ubisoft has stated in the recent AMA that they want to have more interaction and counterplay potential when there is a Thatcher on the offensive team. Now, all that said though, I have absolutely no idea how they'd be able to change Thatcher in a meaningful way that accomplishes all the things that they're worried about and not really happy with his current kit into something different that still allows Thatcher to be Thatcher. If all he's capable of doing is disabling and they continue on with this trend where he can't just take them outright with his EMP, I feel like that'd be a pretty significant nerf to him. Like, even if they do add in loads of more gadgets, can you imagine not being able to use your EMP of taking out a goo mine or an Elemine, and it was only able to disable him for a short period of time? Like, that would be terrible. Like, sure, with a well-coordinated team, you might be able to make that work, but a lot of times you are just playing with a bunch of randoms, and so you're not going to be able to get that coordination where you call out, okay, EMP things are disabled, let's push on in. And so give me your guys' thoughts on the potential rework of Thatcher. How do you think Ubisoft is going to go about it? Do you think that he's in a good place right now and they shouldn't go any other direction? Give me your guys' thoughts down below. The next question is, what is your opinion on having a small first aid pack for operators on Siege that could heal but can only be used once? That is actually a really intriguing idea. So imagine this would need to be a secondary gadget, so you'd have to choose between this health pack and the barbed wire. And this accomplishes one thing that Ubisoft has kind of been struggling with, and that is making people or giving people another option other than barbed wire. Right now, everyone chooses it because it is that strong. And so if you were able to kind of heal yourself up for maybe 30 HP, they wouldn't want to go crazy with it because Doc still needs to be a viable option. You don't want to overshadow his gadget. But if it gives you that little extra boost so that you can take one extra shot when you get into your next engagement with someone, that could actually make it a viable option. Now, that is the question though. Would it actually be viable? On the one hand, allowing yourself to absorb an extra shot could mean the difference between your team winning and losing. Like, that wins games. On top of that, if you did have a Rook, a Doc, and then you had a couple people that could also heal themselves, and they're all playing as 3 armored operators, if you're just playing a super tank heavy match, like, that could actually be a really cool meta or really interesting strategy. On the other hand though, we also know this entire game revolves around the one-shot headshot mechanic. This is one of the biggest issues with Doc right now. Doesn't matter if you're Doc, doesn't matter if you can heal your teammates if they get taken out instantaneously, which would also be a big negative of this gadget. Now, one concern I'm sure people already have about this gadget is that it would make Doc obsolete or not as impactful as he is right now. Doc already doesn't see a whole lot of play. If you allow everyone to heal themselves with this health kit, then what's the point of using Doc? Well, this is the same thing that people were talking about when they introduced the new secondary camera with relation to Valkyrie. Why in the world would you want to play as Valkyrie anymore when your entire team can have these secondary gadget cameras scattered around the map that also can't really be destroyed that easily? As we all know though, while this secondary gadget is awesome, it has its usefulness, I still think that Valkyrie is easily one of the best operators you can have on defense because her cameras are that powerful. I have a feeling that might also be true for Doc. Now, I do think that Doc could probably use some loving, especially compared to all of the other 3 armored operators, but that's a completely other episode. And so all in all, I think this is a really interesting idea. I have no idea how useful it would be in the long term. Maybe for a couple of weeks, people start to use it, but then they realize that nope, barbed wire is really good. You really need to have it on defense, and yes, being able to absorb an extra shot if I'm able to get the heal off might win me some rounds, but it just doesn't happen frequently enough, and I'd rather have the other secondary gadgets. We would only really know if we got our hands on something like this. The next question comes from Colby, and it is, should there be another special challenge to get alpha packs? I feel like the Alpha Pack challenge was a roaring success, but also a massive disappointment for a lot of players. On the one hand, a lot of people love the fact that Ubisoft gave back to the community and had a chance to get a rare and a legendary item. Let's be honest, the legendary items don't drop very often. I think they have a 3% chance, and that's on top of having a very low chance of just simply getting the Alpha Pack after a game. So the fact that they finally got their legendary item after hours and hours of play is awesome. If they were able to do this maybe once a month, maybe every DLC, so every 3 months we had a big challenge like this for a week where we could get a legendary or a rare guaranteed alpha pack, I think a lot of people would love that because they are that rare. On the other side of the coin though, I also noticed there was a lot of people that were disappointed by this entire challenge, either because they got a legendary that really didn't look all that great. Let's be honest, there are some that look amazing, and then there are some that are pretty mediocre, or they got a flat out duplicate. To go through this challenge and to finally get a legendary, you've been waiting for one for quite some time, and to have it be a duplicate is really a kick to the gut. And so I think this just illustrates the issues that this entire system has. I love the idea of alpha packs, and I know that we've talked about this in a past Sunday mailbox, but I'm bringing it up again because it's fresh in everyone's mind, but I really think that the entire alpha pack system could use improving. This just showcases that not only are people excited about more legendaries because of how rare they are, sure, it's nice to have things that are rare, but when they're so rare that no one gets them, like what's the point? And also the fact when you finally do get one and it's a duplicate, everyone hates that. It feels terrible. And so all in all, I would love if Ubisoft did more of these style events. I think on average, the majority of the player base loved these rewards, but at the same time, I just think it illustrated all of the problems that this entire system has. And I realize this might just be wishful thinking, but I'd also kind of hope that this was a bit of a wake-up call to Ubisoft to try to make some improvements. It probably won't happen, but of course I'll cross my fingers. The next question comes from Zach, and it is, do you think they should add in a suppression mechanic to LMGs in Rainbow Six? So I realize that LMGs aren't really that desirable right now in Rainbow Six Siege. Having a lot of rounds at your disposal is awesome, but the other drawbacks like a really long reload, having a lot of recoil and a slow RPM is usually not that desirable, and so people gravitate towards the other weapons in the game because they usually just get the job done better. And so by introducing a suppression mechanic, maybe that would be the thing to make them not only a bit more unique, but have that impact on a match so that people finally start to use them more often. Now, the question I have for you, though, is this just a visual effect, or is it something that we had in Battlefield where it also increases your recoil? Now, you have to remember, there already is sort of a pseudo-suppression effect in this game. If you shoot at someone and you land the shot, their screen gets blurry. It's difficult to kind of figure out and see what's going on in front of you. Now, thankfully, they didn't go too crazy like DICE did back in Battlefield 3 and Battlefield 4 with their visual effects, but it is still in the game. And so by using an LMG, would that just increase the effect, increase the blur? Would you increase more recoil like the Battlefield franchise did? Personally, I don't really think that this is necessary. Like, conceptually, it sounds like it would be a good idea, but gameplay-wise, I just think it leads to a lot of frustration. And so overall, I'm not really too keen on this idea. Maybe it's just because I'm getting flashbacks to previous Battlefield games and I hated it back in those franchises, but this is something that I don't really want to see in Rainbow Six Siege. But yeah, guys, that is about it for today's episode of Sunday Mailbox. I hope you enjoyed. Let me know what you thought about what we discussed in today's video. Do you think that they need to add in a suppression effect? Do you think that's not a good idea? Give me your guys' thoughts down below. As always, if you'd like to submit your own question for an upcoming episode, you can also leave a comment or by sending me a Facebook or Twitter message. But until tomorrow, guys, have a good one and take it easy.